Well, welcome everyone. Happy August. And today is August 2nd. So, all right, exhale time, everyone. The rest of the year, focus on your exhales. Okay. There'll be a lot coming at us. So I think it's important that we feel a little bit more connected to this moment, even though we might be called to do things for the next moment, for the future, and constantly thinking about what's our next family trip is going to be like. How am I going to get my kids back to school? How do I get back to my work? Or what is my retirement going to look like? Let's just come back to this moment, okay? Because we are going to devote this month in somewhat staying in this moment for preparing for our own health for today. Okay. We're not going to cover this topic so that we can, eradicate the issues or we can remove the stressors. It's more like, let's come back every day to this moment so you are taking care of who you are today. Okay. That's why we are going to do the holistic, starting with the H, holistic, WH, holistic approach to health and wellness. And yes, that includes the COVID, okay, and the Delta variant of COVID that we are hearing more and more in the news. So know that this is not a quick fix. To me, not too many things are quick fixes. Okay. This is why I don't use the microwave, because nothing should be cooked that fast. Okay. So let's come back in as a group. Let's get a little more grounded. Let's create the feelings between the heavens and the earth supporting you. You're suspended between these great forces. And I'm going to hand this over to Chris so that he can take us through the meditation of I am here.
So it sounded like from the last week where I wasn't able to be there because of another conflict, but it sounds like everybody had a good time in spite of me being not there or because of me not being there. It was hard to tell watching the video. So I'm glad you all enjoyed your time with Masami last week. And this is coming back to a couple of times back. If you remember, we talked about this practice of saying, I am here. And that was a piece of homework that you all had. So maybe you've already had some chance to practice this, but this is an opportunity for us to bring this into the group and to really see what that feels like as we start to sit with these ideas that we're going to be somewhat challenging you with, I would say, over this next month. This is really a preparatory month in many ways in terms of looking at how we're going to take care of ourselves now, like Masami said, for what's coming toward us from the future that we can't see yet. So let's get back to this practice. And I just want to do a very quick settling in. So wherever you are, find your grounded place and find whatever anchors you. So have a seat. That's usually a good idea. Be still. Close your eyes. And as you do that, make sure that you're in a position that allows you to stay focused and alert, but relaxed. And then find your breath. And specifically, what I want you to do is breathe in through your nose and really extend that breath to 5 or 6 or even more seconds. And then exhale through your nose and do that same thing. Exhale for 5 to 6 seconds slowly and extend it out even longer than that if you like. So let's do that a couple of times just to find that place where we're not operating from our nervous system or stress, but we're able to actually come into a more centered place. and to find that place that is always accessible and available to us if we can remember to access it. Okay, good. So this practice, you can keep your eyes closed for now, is about sinking through the different layers from the words that we speak and using our voice, and then moving into our minds and thoughts, and then dropping down into the silence. And I'm going to call that the silence of our hearts, or our heart space. So wherever you are, I want you to begin by saying the words, just repeating the words, I am here. 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 Now take it gently into your thoughts, repeating the phrase silently to yourself, I am here. And once you feel the weight and the impact of those words in your mind, I am here, drop them down beyond words and feel them directly in your heart. And just feel the pulsing of that repetition. I am here. You might even begin to feel your heart beating the word here, 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 here. And now let's bring that awareness back to the mind with the word here, or I am here. And feel it again as you come back into this space that we're in together, where we are here. I am here with you. You are here with me. And we bring our full presence into how we can be together to support each other in this time. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. That felt really settling for me. And, we wanted to start with that meditation today. Chris and I purposely talked about it because I think there's just so much going on right now in the world, but particularly when it comes to the pandemic information and what we're receiving from many different medias talking about different things, and so much polarizations we're again feeling all across the globe as well. I think the first thing we begin to feel is a sense of anxiety. And then maybe some of you are worrying about things again, and it could turn into fear. So one of the things that we wanted to start out today is the origin of the word fear. And, there are a lot of acronyms used for fear, right? Feeling excited and ready, or false, reality or something. I forget what that, appearing real. That's right. Something like that too. But fear, the word origin actually comes from fair. So like fairways, or what do you call it, Chris? Some other ones that you told me. Thoroughfare.
Yeah, it's indicating like a path or a way.
Yeah. So I like for all of us to understand that the original word of fear is really to open up ways for us, the pathways for us, to change the course for us. And then that's when these feelings come up. So instead of looking at it and say, how do I eliminate those feelings, or how do I not feel that way? I want you to kind of lean into that and say, what is it in me that is asking me to change the course, or go through a certain ways, go through this tunnel, go through this canal, or I need to move through this road. So it's very important that you pause for a moment and really understand the origin of the word fear, and not to only identify it with how we use the word now. Do you have anything else to add, Chris, to that?
I would add to that how important it is to acknowledge where fear is taking shape. How is it showing up for you? And is that driving decisions that you're making? Are you being reactive because of fears? Whether it's deficiencies or unknowns that could happen, or not having enough of something, whatever might be driving that, see if you can really touch on those areas where fear is behind your thought process, because fear and thinking really go hand in hand. And so this is one of the reasons why stopping and feeling that you are here at a nonverbal level is actually very calming to your system, and it allows you to reset and be present in a way that you can notice where fear is starting to take hold and maybe even take over.
And we wanted to bring this subject up right off the bat, yeah, because I think some of us tend to go into the topic of this viruses or anything that's going on that's can impact our health from that fearful place. And so we're looking for answers to maybe suppress the fear, or somehow we can, not have to experience it. But so this is why we're going to choose not to purposely talk about supplements this Monday. But we will give you some examples of some of the supplements and maybe lifestyles that you really want to focus on, and you want to be focusing on all the time. But we will specifically talk about certain nutrients and supplements later on this month, and we'll introduce little by little. So we'll go through several of them. But that being said, we decided not to really jump into that today. And so if that was your expectations, I need you to check in with that, because behind that expectations is generally, how do I fix it? Well, how do I not get it? How do I not feel fearful, afraid of certain situations? And there's nothing to be afraid of, first of all. And second of all, there's so much you can do on a day-to-day lifestyle element of things that we want to encourage you to do more of. Just like the Olympic players, Olympic athletes, they're not going to look at the calendar and say, well, I'd like to join the Olympics, maybe in about 6 months, and they're going to get going on training themselves, right? They do this daily, all the time. This is part of their lives. They may take a couple weeks off, but in fact, they know that they will be getting back into that routine again. So think of it as you're this athlete that is training for your wellness, training for your life every day. And I hear this a lot from working with private clients, that they want me to tell them what supplements are going to work for this symptom and in this condition and this disease and this, whatever situations they're in. There are times those approaches will work, but there are more cases than not, more times than not, those approaches really do not work, because behind that question, behind that energy, there is a different kind of fear that is pushing them. The type of worry and anxiety and very low vibration that is pushing them to want to know which supplement for what condition. I want you to come back to yourself and know that you are a beautiful, amazing perfection. You are made in the image of God, and you have the full potential to heal. You have the full abilities to be healthy. Okay, so know that first and support that body first. Create a good routine. And then if you learn some supplements that could be helpful for certain situations, there's nothing wrong with taking those. In fact, we take supplements as well. But when I get questions like, well, gosh, I'm afraid not to take these, because there are some clients I say, well, you know what? You've been taking that for 6 straight months. Let's take a little break and let's reassess. And sometimes these clients get really nervous. They're like, well, should I stop this for a little while? I'm like, yes, your body says, please take a little break. But we get in the mindset that if I stop it, something's going to fall apart. It doesn't work like that. So let's all kind of come back into your system, know the truth that you can heal yourself. You are already healthy. You're going to be fine. Okay. So that's something that I really want you to focus on. And Chris and I are against using supplements purely for allopathic medical system model. What that means is that if you have hot flashes, I'm not just going to tell you, hey, black cohosh is good for you. That's the same way that we treat in allopathic medical systems. If you have a headache, take certain medications. If you have a pain, take this medication. We're doing the same thing with our supplements. So I encourage you to not go down that road and to really look at the systems. So if you've worked with us privately, you know that we constantly focus on your functions, right? Functions of your digestion, function of your pancreatic systems. We work on the functions of your liver and gallbladder instead of just say, take this, take that, and then you'll be fine. It's more like, let's not decorate your body full of supplements. We're not decorating your house yet. Let's work on the foundation. So that's where we wanted to begin today, with the foundation. But before we go forward, do you have anything else to add? Oh, let's talk about the word delta, Chris.
Yeah, quickly before that, I want to comment on something you said, or at least it reminded me of it, is that when we're talking about function, like Masami mentioned, there's a direct tie-in to the same way that we think about the word practice in more of like a spiritual setting. It's very, very easy for people somehow to accept that practice is a desirable thing when we're talking about something like meditation. I want you to draw the parallel here very strongly to the daily self-care and the kinds of things that we're talking about in terms of restoring function, because that daily practice is very much a spiritual practice. You are preparing yourself for the unknown, just like you are with meditation. If you ask why practice, I forget who it was that said it. It's like, all this practice, I want to know, when is the performance? And the performance is life itself. It's what comes at you and you can't predict it. But the practice of it is to be ready. Is to be ready to take it and to have the capacity. That's the other big word to tie to this, is capacity. And if you really start getting into your own spiritual development, that's ultimately what you're doing, is you are building your own capacity for receiving, for being, for perceiving, for holding wisdom. All of these things take daily practice. They take daily observation and curiosity. So I want to say that, and then let's jump now to delta, because this is something Masami and I were just talking about it this afternoon. And it's so interesting that the current dominant strain of the COVID virus is the Delta variant. For those of you that may have a little bit of background in, it could be math or science, or even in philosophy or finance for that matter, the symbol delta, the Greek letter delta, which is what this variant is named after, even though it's just the next letter in the Greek alphabet, it just so happened. And Nada already beat me to the punch. So delta represents change. Okay, that's the mathematical symbol for change. How do you like that? We are now having this rapid spread of change upon us. I mean, how much more symbolic do we need to be than to look at it from that lens? So the question that we wanted to ask all of you, and maybe we could take this opportunity to jump in to the chat for a moment, is what is your delta right now? What is the delta that you've been experiencing in your own life that needs your attention, that needs you to be here so that you're not operating from fear? Okay, what is that for you right now? Let's hear from you and see if we can get a little discussion.
And I put a dictionary.
Yeah.
Do you want to read that dictionary?
Yeah. So from the dictionary, we have delta is a change or set of changes made to a program, or it could be made to a system. So it's a set of changes made to a system. And so if you're looking broadly at what's been happening for you these past few months, what does that look like? All right, I'm going to jump in with the first comment here from Cheryl. Stepping past my fear is my delta. I'm doing well. All right, yay to you, Cheryl. That's a good one. So stepping past fear. All right, so again, delta is the measurement of what has changed in the system. Any other ones? Okay, so we've got one from Ilka, moving out of procrastination. And that's a really interesting tie-in there, Ilka, because procrastination is often a reflection of fear, because we just don't know what to do next. So that's a great movement. Erlene says, I've discovered that I need to change the way I relate to people, from being the one to guide others to being the one to create community, so we can do it, and my screen's scrolling, sorry, together, so we can do it together. Letting go of my self-perception has been hard. So letting go so that you can have more capacity is what I'm hearing from you, Erlene. That's a nice way to look at it. Let's see, we've got a couple other ones here. Coming from a place of knowledge and wellness to stay healthy. Okay, and that's ultimately what we're talking about here too.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because you can know that you have the healing power, that you are made in the image of God. You know that. But if you just sit back and say, I know that, but I'm just going to shove the, bacon cheeseburger from McDonald's, right? Then your action isn't matching your belief system either. So yes, you do want to have the knowing and then the action. Okay, it's coming in super fast. So let's keep going.
Yeah. So we have speaking up for my own needs, letting go of stuff that no longer serves me, self-confidence, overwhelm, so many things on my plate. We have a question about what about delta brainwave, which is more prominent in sleep. We were talking about this earlier, how interesting that tie-in is also, that the delta wave sleep, which is what happens, it's the slowest of the brain waves, and that's where the healing happens. That's where your brain gets to clean itself and take the trash out. And you need that also to happen in order to experience change, so you don't get stuck in the same old patterns. So that's a great...
we got kind of excited talking about delta early on, I said, oh my gosh, this is lymphatic system and you get to clean out the brain. So it's like we're all getting the upgrades. I don't know, some of you, I hope you're feeling this, because I don't know, should I be using the word I'm excited? No, I shouldn't. But I feel there's like an upgrade seriously happening. Okay. So it's not a coincidence. It's called the delta. Yeah.
So I want to tie that again back to capacity, because if we are doing that daily self-care, we are able to stay with it. And that's kind of the rule of the game. Can we stay with it as these changes roll toward us? So let's hear, there's some more good ones here. So Mary says, letting go of having to know it all. And Kat says, embracing my freedom and power. Sally says, stop trying to please everyone. Don't worry about making people mad at me. That's a really important one. Is what an energy sucker that is, to always be caught in that loop.
Yeah. So the question again is, what is your delta? So what is my delta? Okay. That's the question you want to put on a little sticky note, put it somewhere prominent. Ask yourself continuously this question, because it's going to be an unfolding process, I think.
Richard, let's see if we can come back to your question about delta as in the actual delta variant a little bit later, but hopefully that's not what it is. But yeah, we're going to pick up on some of the things you can do in the next week and beyond that, about ways to really explicitly take care of the mechanisms of your body that are fighting that. Okay, there are a few more, actually quite a few more. So thank you all for these answers. Pauline says, living in a state of appreciation. Marilyn says, being flexible and open to accepting others. Lucy says, to follow my own path, even though others do not see things through my lens. Yeah. Alan says, opening up versus closing down. And Pauline, she points out that the Greek letter for delta is a triangle. And yeah, okay, I'm going to point out, here's another little thing. This comes out of Sufism, but there's an idea here of capacities coming in threes. And this is something that also plays into this, and the interactive relationship that we all have here with each other. Because for anything to exist in our field of experience, it requires three minimum components. So I'll just use the word doer, okay? I'll use the doer, what is done, and then there's the doing itself, if that makes sense. You have the doer, the action that's being done, and then the act of doing. And so you could say this for any kind of verb that you would choose in English. You know, we have the one who is listening. So you have the listener, you have the act of listening, and you have what is being listened to. And that combines these different elements of the subjective and the objective through being, through movement, through connection and relationship.
So is it like a seeker, seeking? I mean,
Yeah,
what
you could put it that way. Yeah, you have the seeker, what is being sought after by the seeker, and then you have the seeking that connects them. And so when you look at that, that's a very dynamic process, and it's also sometimes represented by a triangle.
Well, and then, you know, the word delta obviously comes from originally from the Nile River. When they looked at the delta, it was a triangular shape. So there's a squeeze that is happening, and it expands and opens up into the ocean, right? Into the wider surfaces. So there's an opening that is definitely happening. And as you know, the stools, you know, we have like 3-legged stools in our house, but then we have one of those bar stools that has one, and those things wobble pretty easily. But if you have 3, it's really solid, right? So it's we are, I think, coming into body, mind, spirit times. Those trio really coming together. So I'm going to still use that word. There's part of me that is very excited, and the part of me that says, but still take care of your health. Right. So,
Yeah,
okay, let's keep going because there's so many. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I have another comment I'll throw in later. Let's see.
With more comments?
I know those comments, can't help myself. Nada says, lightening my attitude toward my treatment from autoimmune issues, holistic program to coming from wellness accomplished, in the bag. All right, well, keep it up, because that's what it takes. It's just sticking with that day after day. All right. I'm going to skip a couple of these. We've heard from some of these people too. So I'm going to jump to, let's see, a couple more comments. Lynn says, this is an upgrade. We must make that choice though, individually. For me, it's taking responsibility for my health and wellness, knowing I have the power to thrive in every area of my life, knowing I must let go of old ways of limiting myself or watering down my power, noticing when those old thoughts come in and pausing to shift them, talking to myself, affirming how well I'm actually doing. And then Aaron says, saying yes to connections with others and life. And Richard, the Serenity Prayer has come to mind recently.
Mm-hmm. I like that the saying yes to connections with the others in life. This is something that we weren't allowed to do for the last year or so, right? When we had to stay home, we couldn't hug each other, we couldn't make that physical connections. I know that you can make connections over Zoom, but there's so much more exchanges of energy and microbes, and it's just an incredible way to connect with each other when you can touch each other, hug each other, be in the same space with each other. So I am going to put it out there in the energy field to keep saying yes to that human connections, because I think it doesn't do any good to isolate ourselves, to block ourselves away from each other, because I'm not quite sure that is ultimately helpful for our body, mind, spirit. I've seen some deteriorations in human mind, human psyche, also emotionally, mental health has declined so dramatically in the last year and a half. One, because we haven't been able to say yes to the connections. So yeah, I think that's a very important point you made. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So
comment. Okay. I wanted to just mention this because you mentioned earlier about knowing, and that it is important to know. It's important to have knowledge and information that is good information. And yet there are times where having knowledge or thinking we have knowledge can actually be a stumbling block for us. And something that I believe I've talked about it before on one of our earlier calls, but it's a tendency that we have, and I don't know of a better term for this, but what I've come to call it myself is the knowing bias. And what I mean by that, if I have a background in psychology, and so some of you may know of things like the confirmation bias, where you start seeing things out in the world that confirm your belief system. That would be one example of a bias. Or the negativity bias, which is the brain's tendency to spot things that are dangers and threats, and then to interpret that the world is a dangerous place if you let that play out into your conscious mind. So this idea of a knowing bias can take shape like this, where you get information that comes to you and you immediately think to yourself, oh yeah, I know that. And so it becomes this, instead of, do I really know what that means experientially? It can be very easy to shut it out and kind of say, yeah, I got that one. I know that. See, it's up here. I can use it anytime I want. It's stored away and I've got it ready to go anytime I need it. And, you know, it's true. Some things can work like that. But back to the Olympic athlete analogy, if you have the yeah mentality and you spend your training season on the couch and then race day comes, you can imagine the results if your competitors have been out there on the track running exercises. So just think about that and see if you can spot that tendency too, because that's something that happens when we have fear at work. That can be an activation of our defenses when we get that knowing bias, where we switch off or we deflect something that could actually help us, but it's uncomfortable because it's challenging our familiar ways of doing things. It's taking us out of our comfort zone. So I wanted to just point that out, because that's very much at work a lot of the time when we're faced with new learning and new experiences and having to consider changes that we didn't invite into our lives. So there's my comment, and I'll pass it back.
That was awesome, Chris. Thank you. So part of the knowing bias, we're going to start with the foundations today. We wanted to definitely go over a couple of the foundations that the Chris and I talk about a lot. And you might say, oh, yes, I got it. Okay. But we're going to start with hydration again. So this entire month, I want you to focus on hydration. And we're going to build on it every week. So next week, we'll have a different foundation, and we will trickle in different supplements to help you to begin to start thinking about, okay, what can I do to really stabilize and support my immune system? I'm not a huge fan of really ramping up our immune system. That's a totally wrong approach also, okay? Just because something is like, let's bring up the Olympians again. The Olympic athletes, that just doesn't mean that because tomorrow I am going to compete, or in 2 weeks I'm going to compete, I'm going to ramp up to the point that I'm injuring myself, okay? No, you want to take care of your immune system at the right point. There is a sweet spot for immune system. It's different for each of us. But if you get too ramped up, okay, that is not healthy for your system either, okay? So please, I'm not a huge fan of people that go off and take these like crazy amount of vitamin C's, crazy amount of vitamin D's, crazy amount of zinc. We'll talk about all those, but you've got to pull back and say, what can I do every day? What can I do every day to support who I am? Okay. So please, if you're doing one of those crazy amounts of mega dosing some things, unless you just went through some kind of a chemotherapy, maybe you went through some kind of a treatment and you could use a little bit of intravenously getting the vitamin C, maybe Myers cocktails, getting vitamin B's, that's a different story. But in most cases, please just really take care of yourself every day, build up slowly, okay? So we're going to start with the hydration, like I said. And you might say, oh, I drink plenty of water. I don't know what they're talking about it again, okay? However, we see that the hydration and dehydration becomes such a big issue. So I will pick one of my good friends, okay? He would come in and say, oh, I'm drinking But then I come to find out that he was drinking green tea diluted all day. All day he will be drinking green tea diluted. That's not hydration, okay? That is dehydration, right? So it's not the amount of liquids that are passing through your mouth and into the throat, but what kind of water are you drinking? And is it filtered? Does it have little minerals put back in? Those are important. How much to drink is going to be will vary from person to person. Do you exercise? Is it really hot where you live? Do you sweat a lot? All those things will come in. But one of the things that will connect back to the COVID-19 is the lack of potassium has been known and seen scientifically to impact how much you struggle with the COVID. Okay. Lack of potassium. So potassium is something that Chris and I add back into our water every time we drink our glass of water. So we have powdered potassium that we put it into our water. And I aim to have about 1.5 teaspoons of potassium powder. And for some of you, you may need actually more. There are times that I sweat a lot if I'm gardening or yard work or whatever. Then I would take about 2 teaspoons of that powdered potassium. So that's one. And then I wanted actually Chris to remind us of the first stage of hydration and the next stage, which will be the chronic stage of dehydration. And what are some of the symptoms that you may want to watch out for? So Chris, will you take that?
Yeah, and I'm going to post a quote up here that's from one of the doctors that really devoted his life's work to hydration. And he wrote a book that was pretty impactful in the functional world, and it's called Your Body's Many Cries for Water. But this is a quote from that, and he says, chronic cellular dehydration of the body is the primary etiology of painful degenerative disease, where etiology is it's the cause, it's the source. So in other words, he's saying that most of the degenerative disease conditions that we feel and the pain of it begins with chronic dehydration. So let me talk about a few of the signs. And so if we're talking about,
I'm gonna answer. I got this a couple times. So it's 1.5 to 2 teaspoons of potassium per day. Yes, but I take them throughout the day, so they're not in the tablet forms, but they are actually in the form of powder. Because the tablets you can find in a store only generally comes with the 99 milligrams. Okay, I take anywhere from 2 grams to sometimes even more than that of potassium per day. Okay. And I do aim with vegetables and other, green vegetables, you get a lot of potassium from. So I'm going towards more 4.5 grams of potassium per day. But that's a lot of vegetables that I have to eat in order to get there. So I actually take some of it through the powder form in the water. And then when I take them, the water tastes really good, tastes like a mineral water. It tastes like spring water. Your body will really feel quenched. So if you're one of those people that constantly drink water, but you just never feel like you're quenching your thirst, that's a good sign that you might want to look into potassium as well as a pinch of sea salt, because those potassium and sodium, they balance each other out in your body. They have a great impact on your adrenals. So, that's going down a little bit more complicated section of the functional nutritional side, but to pay attention to how do I feel quenched? And if you're adding the potassium makes you go, oh yeah, that feels really good for my body, then that's a good sign that your cells are starting to get hydrated. Sorry, Chris. And then will you go through those chronic and the symptoms?
Yeah, and a couple of things to note too are that it doesn't take much before your whole system is impacted by dehydration. Just a 2% drop from your optimal levels will make you start feeling fatigue. So that's it, 2% loss, which could just mean you're not having enough throughout your day. And that can automatically show up as fatigue. And some of the other early signs that you see when you start to just not have enough fluids in your system are anxiety, irritability, depression, cravings, cramps, headaches. And a lot of times we associate these with mental health. We associate these things with medical issues, but these are actually just the early signs of not having enough water in your body chronically. And if you start to live in that way, and so if you get to the point where you even drop as low as a 10% drop, that's where you start to see diagnosable conditions, things that you would probably visit a doctor for in most cases, where you would have digestive issues or heart issues or immune function issues, or things that are happening in your musculoskeletal system with joints and connective tissues and things like that. So as that progresses and you get more into this deep state of chronic dehydration, you start seeing more and more things like heartburn. Okay, heartburn, acid reflux. That's a chronic dehydration sign. And because what are our digestive juices 99% made out of? Water. Okay, joint pain. Why? Because the synovial fluid that surrounds our joints and makes them move is made out of 99% water. Back pain, same reason. Okay, migraines. Your brain is basically a bundle of water and fat. And if it doesn't have enough of both of those things, the vessels, the blood vessels that run through your brain start to become constricted. And when that happens chronically, they can have blockages that are the result, or that result in migraines. Okay, migraines are a vascular condition. And for most people, it's chronic dehydration first. Okay, so many people we've seen clear migraines just by taking care of this. Another one is fibromyalgia. So if you're somebody who has found your body hurting and being in pain in a generalized way more and more, having those shooting, burning kinds of sensations, this is somewhere you want to look seriously, is how is your water consumption? And then two big ones that have to do with the digestive system are constipation on one hand and colitis on the other. The fast and slow are both indications of an imbalance. And that would be the first place you would want to look, is what is your daily water intake like? And again, just so that we're not leaving you hanging, there's a very, very easy baseline that you should aim for. And it's not absolute. If you're paying attention, you'll know if you're hitting it or not, because you won't have these signs and symptoms that I just read, or at least you'll have a great reduction in them. So the baseline that you want to aim for is take your body weight, and I think Masami might remember the metric conversion. I don't have it off the top of my head. So I'll say the one for the American and British way of looking at it, which would be take your body weight in pounds, divide it in half, and then aim for that number of ounces in pure water daily. Okay. So
for the kilograms is of 0.3 times your body weight in kilograms. And that will give you the liters that you need to drink. Yeah. And I wanted to say a couple things. Am I okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So a couple of things is that when we talk about you drinking plenty of water, sometimes we have clients that will say, yes, I drink a lot of water, but they forgot to drink throughout the day. And around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, they start to notice, oh, I haven't had enough water. And they end up chugging water. I have people that will say, oh, I chug 32 ounces of water just so that I can get to the calculation that you told me to do. Well, getting water out of a fire hose isn't going to go into your cellular system. Okay. It's going to be really damaging to your system. So drinking regularly, right, throughout the day. And my goal is to try to drink 60 to 70% of my water intake by 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's a good kind of a focus that you can have. Okay. 4 to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you've consumed about 60 to 70% of your water need for that day. Okay. And another thing is I get the questions like, can I just put lemon water in there? You know, can I squeeze lemon all day and drink it? No. Okay. Lemon juice is fantastic. Okay. Lemon water is amazing. It's amazing in terms of breaking the mucus. It's also great for getting the phlegm out. It's great for liver and gallbladder detox. But detoxification requires a lot of hydration. Okay. So lemon water can become really dehydrating to your system if you do it all day. That goes for lime. Okay. That goes for certain teas. Like some people drink tea all day long, not just green tea, but I'm talking like peppermint tea, spearmint tea, like, just kind of herbal teas are not necessarily white flower based and gentle. Those don't impact so much, but the teas that have like the digestive teas kind of a thing, those can be more on the dehydrating side than a hydrating side. So I'm talking pure water, okay? Pure water. And if you don't like your tap water so that you have to add the lemon or you got to add something to drink it, then you got to check your tap water and say, what the heck is going on with your water that you're drinking, that you don't like it so much? Because if you drink the pure, beautiful water, your body would just automatically crave that and wants it, and it tastes delicious to you, okay? Distilled water will also remove all your nutrients out of you. So do not drink distilled water, please, because that is only used when you're doing certain things like a heavy metal chelation, heavy metal detoxifications. You know, that might be a helpful thing to drink for a short period of time. But distilled water is not always a good thing. If you do reverse osmosis kind of a system, then you need to add the liquid minerals back into the water. Okay. So whether that's salt or that's a little bit of magnesium, that could be a little bit of sometimes a little calcium, but also potassium. They need to go back into the water. And unfortunately, that's the world that we live in. Okay. That's just what it is. We're not going to get these minerals because not all of us have the access to the spring water that you can just walk over and scoop up. Okay. I grew up that way. I had spring water right where we lived. We could do that, but unfortunately, that is not the case for most of us. So please know that lemon water teas, those will tend to dehydrate you much more than hydrate because they have a detoxifying impact on you. Okay.
So
all right.
I want to add to this that we have seen so many people reverse the big symptoms that they were experiencing just by correcting this imbalance. And for those of you that are looking for a rule here, I want to really emphasize how much you have to pay attention to your own body and to your own responses to hydration and dehydration to learn if that rule of thumb that we gave earlier, half your body weight in ounces or 0.3 of your body weight in kilograms as liters or milliliters, don't get too stuck on that. It's a guide. And the key is don't trick yourself either by doing things like I've worked with a lot of people that say, oh yeah, I drink, 70, 80 ounces of coffee. It's like, well, that doesn't really work because anything that's not just water is doing something else, okay? And we often say that if it's not pure water, there's usually a demand it's putting on the system that ends up using the water you need for metabolic function to do something else like filter things out of your liver or like your liver is going to have to work harder if you're drinking a sugar-free flavored additive, some fruity flavored thing to your water because you don't like the taste of your water. We've heard people say these things, or coffee or teas. Just try to keep it simple. Okay, this might be part of your training regimen. Remember, the Olympic athlete in you needs a little bit of a practice regimen in order to make sure that function is being optimized and capacity is being built. So just pay attention to this very simple and yet very powerful and profound piece of practice, which is correcting hydration imbalance. Okay, try not to make it too complicated for yourself. Start with the simple guidance that we're giving you here, and then pay attention and track how it impacts you as you do it regularly. And here's the key: over time. Okay, there's a time component for you to feel the effects.
Okay, so adding the minerals back in is what's important. So I'm sorry, I got something in my throat.
So the minerals are something you have to really pay attention to, especially if you are using a reverse osmosis system. That's what Masami was saying earlier, because the reverse osmosis will pull the minerals out of the water in the filtration process. And something like distilled water it's electrically charged so that it actually pulls minerals out of your body that are already in there, and it binds them, and then you lose them for your body's functions. So we can't even say is it universally good for everyone. It's hard to say yes to that. If you're somebody who has either a demonstrated need for certain minerals, which, arguably we all have a need for, especially the big ones, calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium, because those are the ones that make all the electrical signals in our cells work. But if you know that you have a reverse osmosis system, or your water's been tested and it doesn't have certain things in it, those would be good times to use mineral supplements. And generally speaking, something like mineral drops aren't going to be an issue. I would say that's not going to be an issue affecting your hydration status. In fact, it's probably going to assist it, as long as you don't go overboard.
Yeah, and then I think everybody's low on minerals. So just adding a little bit back into the water is probably not going to even do a whole lot, but it's definitely you need to add the minerals back in. And we take additional minerals on top of that. And we will address some of the minerals like magnesium, the importance of magnesium with COVID also, but also zinc. And we will talk about these things as well. But right now, let's focus on this next week till we meet again. Can I do a better job with water? Can I consume majority of my water by 5 o'clock in the afternoon? You can continue to drink more later on, but am I doing a good job throughout the day? Another thing that I really want to make sure to mention here is that, many of you know this rule, but in Ayurveda, we say, if you drink water with the food, and then in Japan, I was taught this too, it's early grave is what we say. If you drink water with meals, that's an early grave. Okay. So when you go to the restaurant, when you eat at home, please don't order or drink a tall glass of water with your meal. And in Ayurveda, my teacher said, maybe 4 ounces to maximum about 6 ounces is all she would recommend. And in Japan, we just drink like maybe a little teacup of something afterwards, but usually came with the miso soup. So that was enough fluids to eat your food with. And if you're needing water to consume your food, that means you're, first of all, not chewing your food. Second of all, you might be having some brain connection dysregulation. So your hypothalamus and pituitary are not detecting the fact that you're eating. So you might be eating too fast. You didn't cook your food, so you didn't give yourself a chance to smell the food. Your salivary glands have not been producing good amylase and lipase and, the saliva to move your food and churn the food, and then also break down the foods. So there are a couple of more lifestyle things that might be getting in the way. If you're needing liquids, foods to eat, liquids and fluids in order to eat your food. So pay attention, stop a little. And are you blessing your foods? Are you pausing? Are you breathing before you begin to eat? Those things might be all helpful in terms of hydration, but also digestion. Okay. Because you do not want to dilute your stomach acid when you're eating. So those are a couple of the things. I think the last thing I wanted to say about the potassium is that when you begin to add the potassium into your water, and if you're interested in the potassium that we use, you could just go to masamicovey.com under stores, a store, I think you will see the powder potassium that we use. If you're curious about what it is that we use. The rule of thumb is when you begin to add the potassium in the water, just start slowly and see how that feels, okay? And your body will actually let you know when it's not great for you. And then I'll tell you what the body does when the potassium becomes too much. You'll bring a glass of water to your nose and then you'll go, oh my God, that is disgusting. Like it smells like a swamp water. Okay. It literally smells like you walked by a really hot summer day swamp water. And it's disgusting. That's why I drink water out of a glass and not from one of those bottles that you put the top on and you have no awareness coming through the senses. I like to take my time and make a glass of water so that I am not just automatically just drinking it. It's like plugging your nose and drinking something. So if it starts to taste bad, smells bad, then your body weight saying, you know what, we're good with potassium right now. So can you just pull back or take maybe a day off or 2 days off, or maybe can you lower the dose? That's how the body is always communicating, right? So trust the language that the body is speaking for you. Okay, so that's the last thing I need to say for this today. Chris, you have the last word today.
Wow. Well, in that case, I'm going to claim the mic. There is a comment in the chat from Cheryl about adding something, and I'm not even going to name the something. You can all see it if you're on the call here, but I'm going to just call it a fill in the blank. Okay, because I want to look at this as a type of question rather than an ingredient that is okay or not okay to add to water. So here's how I'm going to frame it. When we have people do this, we use this particular questionnaire tool to assess where people's symptoms are and have a good baseline to measure from. One of the questions on the questionnaire asks people if there's something that they couldn't give up. And so it's an interesting question because if you start looking at, you wouldn't want to give up something, there's a little bit of that in this question of here, because we're not here to say what's good and what's bad. We're trying to give a sense of a guideline that allows you the flexibility to make a decision that's good for you. And so I don't want to even answer this question with a yes or no. I want to answer it by saying, is there something about drinking pure water that you're resisting? That would be my question back to you.
Or your body is resisting, right? So you have to add that in order to consume water. Because if the water is good for your system, you don't have to add anything except occasionally adding some of these minerals, right? Not occasionally, but if your water is filtered, you've got to add them. But if the spring water is good for you, you don't need to add anything to it and your body will be quenched, right? So that's what we're going for. So if you have to add something in order to make the water taste better, then maybe there's something going on with your water is where we would probably go. And the Penny asked a really good question, so I want to answer that. Is it a room temperature or a cellular, your cell temperature? Yes, absolutely. So first thing in the morning, you don't start with the ice cold water, you start with the warm water. Warm water that your body can absorb easily. Room temperature water, even in the midst of the heat. Okay. Room temperature, if you could do it. And when it was close to 100 degrees here, Chris started opening the freezer door and started making the ice. And I said, what are you doing? We don't make any ice in this house. He goes, I can't take it. I need to have a little bit of ice in my drink. So I think we did the ice drinks for about 2 days. And then I shut the ice cube making.
Okay. I'm gonna claim the last word again for a second here.
We gotta wrap up.
Yeah. So no, just to get that idea though about having a way of looking at this that isn't too dogmatic. Okay. So allow yourself some flexibility, and I just want to say if you haven't yet established the habit of drinking pure water, make that your first thing that you practice doing, and then build from there. And don't worry so much about the about, you know, planning. I'm just trying to read. There are a couple of comments about putting minerals back in, and can we do that in large quantities ahead of time? Will it spoil the water, make it less effective? Well, the thing is, you probably can do that to some extent, but you don't want to do that too much either, because I'll tell you that if you really study a water bottle over time that has a lot of nutrients in it, mold and bacteria love the same nutrients that feed our bodies. So that can be a quick way to create a growth in your container. All right. So that's
Also,
something.
your mineral needs change from morning to the afternoon. So I think it's okay to make a certain quantity to make it easier, but be flexible with it too. You know, play around with it. There's not a really like a rule here. Okay.
Yeah, and your body will tell you when after a meal it's time. I mean,
And I like to make spring water ice cubes. Nada said that's perfect. I like that.
So we probably need to wrap up here. We've gone, as usual, a couple minutes past our hour, but this isn't the end of the conversation. This is something that needs to be revisited again and again. Okay, so if we didn't totally answer your question, don't worry. Okay, you have enough to practice on right now, and just
So
start
Cheryl, I see you chatting a whole bunch on this, and I could see you're frustrated with this one. What is it, a mint leaf or something? What we're asking you is, why don't you just try it without the mint leaf this week? That's it. Just try it out. How does that feel? Did that make any difference? Are you okay with it? Then just do that. Stay flexible with it, okay? Because what we know functionally working with people for years, is that pure form of water is the best way to hydrate yourself. That cannot be disputed, really. That is the truth of our biology. So that's it. So give it a try.
Okay, let me put it one other way before we go, is that's the least expensive way for your body to make use of that resource, because it doesn't have to filter more things out or clean it or warm it up if you're drinking room temperature water, or cool it down if you're drinking ice water. Okay, it's the cheapest way for your body to do what it needs to do. So think of it in those terms. And if you need to save energy in your life and in your body, that's a really easy way to do it.
So just this week is all I'm asking. Just this week, try pure water the entire week. That's it. Okay, just the entire week. Just give it a try. It's one full week. That's it. And then see how that helps you. May not help you, may not notice anything, but just 1 week, and let's discuss it. Okay, let's discuss it next week as we build on this foundation. Plus, you learned that the potassium is a key mineral for COVID also. Okay, this study came out super early on in the COVID situations, and it was 100% of the people that they studied of COVID said that they were lacking in potassium. This is why we are putting a huge underline saying potassium, please, because this was 100% of the people that they studied. Okay. So, and I attest to this because I use up potassium very easily, because potassium is directly, everyone, connected to your adrenal fatigue. Okay. I've gone through adrenal fatigue for decades. So my adrenals need so much more help. Okay. And if you're one of those people that sweat a lot like me, okay, I'm sure you've noticed that I can't wear a lot of light colored clothes. Okay. You'll look back at all the stuff I've recorded. I always wear dark clothes because I sweat like crazy. Okay. My feet, my hands, I'm a sweating machine. But what I realized is that part of it was my adrenals were so fatigued that I was releasing sweat. Okay. And that screwed up my mineral contents in my body for decades. So I have to work on my sodium and potassium regularly. So start with the pure water, adding some minerals back in there. Give it a try. Okay. All right. So we will continue this. All right, everyone. And thank you so much for showing up. And next week, we'll bring in another foundational stuff with the hint of some minerals and supplements to get our bodies back in alignment again together. All right. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.